What happens when two of Hollywood's most beloved personalities sit down for what should be a light-hearted chat, but instead the conversation swerves into territory neither of them expected? What begins as friendly banter slowly unravels into one of the most uncomfortable moments in daytime television history. Before we get into what went down, make sure you subscribe and drop a comment below telling us what you think really caused this clash. The studio energy feels warm and welcoming. As Valerie Bertinelli walks onto the set, Drew Barrymore greets her with that familiar burst of positive energy she's known for. Arms wide open, she pulls Valerie into a warm hug that seems genuine enough. The audience applauds loudly, and for a moment everything appears perfectly normal. Two women who have been in the public eye for decades, both navigating fame, divorce, reinvention, and the constant pressure of Hollywood. On paper, this should be the easiest interview ever. Drew settles into her chair, crossing her legs and leaning forward with that curious, open expression she always has. "Valerie, it is so good to have you here. I feel like we have so much to talk about." Valerie smiles, though there's a slight guardedness in her eyes. "Thank you for having me, Drew. I'm happy to be here." "So," Drew begins, her voice slipping into that confessional tone she uses when she's about to dive deeper. "I have to say, I've been following your journey over the last few years. You've been so open about everything you've been through the divorce, the self-discovery, the cookbook. Say it's been really inspiring to watch." "Thank you," Valerie replies, her smile still there but not quite reaching her eyes. "It's been a journey, that's for sure." Drew nods enthusiastically. "And I think what I love most is how honest you've been. Like, you don't hold back. You put it all out there. Rather good. The bad, the messy. People really connect with that." "Well," Valerie says carefully, "I think when you've lived as long as we haven't been through what we've been through, there's no point pretending everything is perfect. Life can be messy, and people appreciate honesty." "Absolutely," Drew agrees. Then she pauses. That famous host pause. The one that means she's about to take things into deeper emotional waters. "And speaking of honesty, I want to ask you about something because I think it's fascinating. You've talked a lot about body image, about your relationship with food, about feeling like you were never enough, and I wonder, a broken bar, do you think some of that came from the industry, or was it more internal?" Valerie's expression shifts a little. It's small, but it's unmistakable. A slight tightening around her mouth, a flicker in her eyes. "I think it's both," she says. "The industry definitely has impossible standards, especially for women. But we also internalize those messages without realizing it. It gets into your head. So it becomes hard to separate what's pressure from the outside world and what's your own voice." Drew leans in closer. "Right, but here's what I'm curious about. You were on a sitcom for years. You were basically America's sweetheart, and then you've talked about feeling like you disappeared for a while. Do you think you put too much pressure on yourself to keep that image? Like a broken bar, was it really the industry, or were you holding yourself to a standard that maybe wasn't realistic?" There's a brief silence. Valerie's jaw tightens. "I think that's a complicated question, Drew. When you're young and you're told that your value is tied to how you look and how likable you are, it's not really a choice. You don't wake up and decide to put pressure on yourself. It's something built into the system." Sure, Drew says, nodding quickly. "But you also made choices, right? I mean, we all make choices, and I'm just wondering, looking back, do you feel like maybe you could have been kinder to yourself, or do you feel like you needed to go through all of that to get where you are now?" Valerie's smile is gone now. "Drew, I'm not sure I understand what you're getting at. Are you asking if I think my suffering was necessary?" Drew seems to realize she hit a nerve, but instead of backing off, she pushes forward the way she does when she's trying to have a deeper moment but doesn't read the room. No, I'm just saying, a broken bar, sometimes we create our own narratives, you know. And I'm wondering if the story you've been telling about your life is the full picture, or if maybe there's another layer to it." Valerie's posture shifts. She sits up straighter, her hands gripping the armrests. "Another perspective, Drew. This is my life. These are my experiences. I'm not creating a narrative. I'm sharing what actually happened." "Of course," Drew says quickly, "and I'm not discounting that. I just think it's interesting how we all remember things differently, and sometimes when we're in pain, We view things through a certain lens. And I'm wondering if now, with some distance, you see things differently. The tension in the room is thick now. The audience feels it. Valerie speaks slowly, firmly. Drew, I've done a lot of therapy. I've done a lot of personal work. I'm very clear on what happened to me and how it affected me. And I don't appreciate the suggestion that I'm somehow misremembering or exaggerating my own experiences. Drew's eyes widen and she lifts her hands in a defensive gesture. I'm not saying that. I swear I'm not. I'm just trying to have a deeper conversation about how we process trauma and how we tell our stories. I think that matters. It does matter, Valerie says, her voice rising slightly, which is why I'm careful about how I talk about it. And I'm not interested in being psychoanalyzed on your show. I came here to talk about my cookbook, my life now, not to be questioned about whether my trauma was real enough or handled the right way. The air in the studio feels heavy. Drew tries to shift the tone, her voice softer. Valerie. But then her expression shifts again, and it's clear she isn't finished. Okay, I hear you, Drew says. I really do. But can I just add one more thing? I think it's relevant. Valerie's lips press tightly. Go ahead. I've been really open about my own struggles. Drew begins, a slight edge creeping in. I've talked about my childhood, my parents, the addiction, all of it. And one thing I have learned is that sometimes we hold on to pain because it becomes part of who we think we are. And I'm just wondering if maybe and I say this with love if maybe you've held on to some of that pain longer than you needed to. The silence that follows is overwhelming. Valerie stares at her in disbelief. Excuse me? Drew seems to sense she's crossed a line, but instead of apologizing, she tries to explain. I'm just saying a broken bar. I've seen you talk about the same things at the divorce, the body image issues, the feeling of not being enough. And at some point, don't you think it's time to move past it, to let go, and step into who you are now without bringing all of that with you? Valerie's voice is ice cold. Drew, you do not get to tell me when I'm done processing my trauma. You don't get to decide that I've spoken about something too much, or that I should just move on. Everyone heals at their own pace, and the fact that you think you can sit here and tell me how I should handle my life is incredibly presumptuous. I'm not telling you how to live your life, Drew protests, raising her voice. I'm just asking questions. Isn't that what this show is? Real conversations. Real conversations require respect, Valerie fires back. And what you're doing isn't respectful. You're sitting in judgment of my healing process and calling it curiosity. But what it feels like is you think you figured something out about me that I haven't figured out myself, and that's condescending. Drew's face flushes. I don't think that at all. I think you're strong and smart. But I also think that sometimes when we're in the public eye, we get stuck in patterns because that's what people expect. And I'm wondering if you feel that pressure. Of course I feel pressure, Valerie says sharply. But that doesn't erase the reality of what I've been through. And it doesn't mean I'm performing my trauma for attention. This is my life. These are real things that happened. Drew takes a breath, her tone turning wounded. I think you're being really defensive, and I don't know why. I'm on your side. I always have been. An honest conversation would involve